Yeah, in retrospect, everybody was so excited. San Diego State, UConn, the rematch
Hmm.
became a mismatch. Aztecs just got overwhelmed. Very, very good season. Not a great season because they were so erratic and so streaky. But you win 26 games and you get back to the Sweet 16 accomplishment in what many thought would be a rebuilding year, considering how many good kids left the program. But now it's decision time. And they got roster decisions to make, they got scholarship limitations to make. There might be a transfer out. There's NIL issues that are now surfacing that they are trying to solve. Let me run through headlines. Lamont Butler, Reese Waters, Micah Parrish can all leave. They do have one extra year because of the COVID rule
Hmm.
if they wish to stay. At this point, I think Butler stays. I think Reese Waters has to come back because his season was so up and down, and he can still play at this level. I'm sure he can. And in terms of Butler, he's accomplished so much and he's about to graduate. Does he go to the NBA and be a second round draft pick and maybe wind up in the NBA G League? Or does he stay here and continue to polish his skills a la Jaden Ledee? I'd love to see all three stay. They do that, though. They're only going to have one scholarship left. It looks like they're going to lose one of their forwards. DeMarshe Johnson's been here 3 years. He practices. Coaches see him every minute, every day. They must not think he can play at the Mountain West Conference level, so he might exit. The other story is a really interesting story. San Diego State is really trying to catch up to the big time programs in terms of NIL money. And the Mesa Foundation was found a couple of years ago by the big cigar boosters. They raised $325,000 the first year for NIL money, and they gave the kids each $2,000 apiece. This past year, they pushed it out to about $500,000 in donations, which is really exceptional. And some of the players got higher amounts of money than the younger players, etc. And they are now trying to trigger a civic drive to get to 1.2 million because that's what they think they're going to need for 24 and 25. There's also a story out there that 8 super teams are proposing a huge preseason non-conference tournament in Las Vegas with the backing of hotels, corporate, etc., that would guarantee each school $1 million that would have to go into each school's NIL fund.
Oh.
And there would also be a split share of TV revenue from this big preseason Thanksgiving tournament, I guess you'd call it. And it involves a lot of marquee names. They haven't selected it yet. They haven't determined or announced what the site is, but it would be upper echelon programs, fill the arenas, get big TV money for this event, 3-day event, and all that money would then go into the team's NIL. So it's kind of a novel way to add money. At the end of the day, the thing that really impressed me about the Aztecs, tough loss to UConn, tough to see. Post-game press conference, the players did not talk about their disappointment, did not talk about how poorly they played, did not, with the exception of one odd compliment to the UConn, they talked about relationships. They talked about their journey over what they've experienced the last 2 years. They talked about Dutcher the coach, Dutcher the leader, Dutcher the person. And they said, we have made friends with this core for the last 2 years, and we have a relationship going forward, that man, the rest of our lives. That was really cool. That was really different than most NCAA press conferences. Only word I can use to describe San Diego State basketball, classy, from top to bottom. So that's where we are. John Riley's turn to talk about the Aztecs.
Well, this is a successful season. Sweet 16, 2 years in a row. You got to love that. Yeah, they ran into a juggernaut, just like the Padres, playing the Tigers or the Yankees in the World Series or the Chargers playing the 49ers. They ran into
a buzzsaw.
But it's interesting, the players like that you talked about, like Reese Waters, I think, is going to be back. He says he likes the culture. He feels comfortable. I've heard people saying maybe he's going to be a feature go-to guy next year. That sounds good. Micah, I'm not sure about, he might stay, he might go. I don't know. Lamont Butler is the interesting one because he had a down year, even after he went and worked out with all the NBA scouts, like in May of last year. Is he going to make the jump, or, oh my God, would he switch to another college team like Keshad Johnson did and get an NIL payday?
NIL payday probably comes into the equation, but he's got 1 year left. This culture is really important. They come up with more NIL money. Maybe they can keep him. He's not going to get $200,000, but, and he stays here and runs this system again and just continues to polish. Maybe he puts himself into the NBA draft to the point he gets a guaranteed contract as a late first rounder, maybe an early second rounder, rather than hoping to go to camp and wind up in the NBA G League in Sioux Falls. So I hope he stays. If he and Reese Waters stay with the young bad boys, the three bigs who come back, that's a pretty nice foundation. They got a couple of incoming freshmen, and they might have one or two scholarships to use to go see if they can find somebody in the transfer portal to be a difference maker.
Well, these guys coming in, the transfers, these guys are big time guys. They're like 7 feet tall. I mean, so this could be pretty interesting how they configure the roster. But I think if I'm Lamont Butler, after what the season that he just had, even as defensive player of the year in the Mountain West, I don't think he gets drafted at all. I mean, if he goes into the draft this year, I mean, we talked earlier about how, Jaden Ledee and Zach Edey don't really rank that high on the mock draft boards because of all the Euros that are coming in and guys from other parts of the world. So I don't see, and Lamont has to have a more shooting consistency from the three. And if he does that, then I think he's got a shot.
Okay, all basketball at the front end. We get to halftime.